any big flip that I know, that's the art that they focus on, is their rehab budget and how to get that thing down.
What is going on, guys? Welcome to today's episode of the Collecting Keys Real Estate Investing Podcast. Today is Wednesday. It's our off-market operator radio show, and I am Mike DeHaan here with my co-host Dan Austin, and special guest today, Cody Cressy, because Dylan is out for a little bit because he just had his first little baby.
He's on maternity leave from the podcast.
He's on maternity leave.
We're not paying him. Yeah, paternity leave. We're not paying him leave though.
We don't pay him anyway. In maternity leave.
It's unpaid maternity leave.
Yeah, but if this is your first time on the show, guys, on these Wednesday shows, we dive into the real estate market, things that are going on in our business, tactics and marketing sort of systems, things that we are working on that we're finding success with. And today we have Cody on because we are going to talk about kind of like a higher sort of pattern that we have started to see in this specific direct-to-seller real estate industry. And if you guys have not heard Cody before on past episodes, he is our local partner here in Spokane who kind of runs a lot of our acquisitions. And so we're going to chat today kind of about what we are doing with our local market, why we have chosen to partner up with Cody, and some of the challenges that we regularly see with people that are trying to scale these businesses. And so if you guys don't know a lot of our background, Dan and I, we have scaled a national wholesaling flipping business over the past couple of years. We were continuing to do a lot of deals nationwide.
We're like, we're world champs. We're world champs.
Hey, as soon as someone can figure out how to like wholesale stuff like in like Europe, I would see that would be a game changing.
Let's do it. Let's be the first ones to do it.
Real estate doesn't transact the same.
Just need to do one deal that has an easement in Northern Washington, like right on the edge of Canada, and then worldwide.
Yeah, go up to Vancouver, dude. Yeah.
Yeah. But in the last few months, we have started working with Cody more seriously here in Spokane. And it's been a very interesting sort of transition because all of a sudden, just because it is a kind of lower overhead, higher profit potential setup, we're starting to make more money in Spokane than on the national business, even though the national business has more deals. And one of the takeaways, I guess, from this is that I think that when it comes to real estate businesses, people tend to pursue scale or trying to do more deals or trying to like grow their team or do all these different things. And the crazy outcome that typically tends to happen is you quickly realize that you're actually not taking home that much more than if you just like stayed smaller, right? And this whole sort of thesis, I guess, was really emphasized for me. And I was talking to one of my good friends who has a very large operation, and he was basically saying that in like a bad month, they'll do 300,000. In a good month, they'll do, 500, 600,000 a month. And their profit margin is typically like 20%. And so if you're able to do a huge month, like $300,000 for the month, and you still only take home 60K, like what's the point, right? Like honestly, versus, that's what Dan and I have made when it was literally just us and like an AM when we were each taking home 60K in a good month, And so it's like one of the challenges with this business is like, how exactly do you scale it, and there's the overhead that tends to build up. The marketing expenses are very, very high. The cash conversion cycle is very long. And it sort of brings around this question of like, does it actually make sense to try and push to grow to something big? Or is the better play with a real estate, like investing and flipping and wholesaling business, to just stay tight and small and really just get good at a singular piece?
I think it's like we had a great conversation with the scale community about that today. And it depends, right? Like, what do you want out of this? And I think you get into the business for various reasons. And at least annually, if not biannually or even quarterly, you need to continuously reassess where you're going and what direction you're headed. Because it changes. You and I have changed like our goals and what we want or expect from our business multiple times, as we've kind of grown as entrepreneurs, also grown our income, grown our wealth, and saying, oh, well, maybe that's not what I want, or maybe that is what I want. And it's okay as your life evolves and things change that you change what you want. But ultimately, what do you want your business to look like? Because if you want to come into the office every day, have your assistant or reception person there, have acquisitions manager running the day-to-day, dispositions. Like if you want like a business where you don't actually have to work in it, you can get there. You need more scale, and you're going to take, your margins are going to go down. So instead of making 40, 50% margins, you're probably going to make 20, which is more in line with like a really profitable small business.
Yeah.
Which is okay. But you're going to take home less money if that's what feeds you, is like, I want to walk into my office and do this, like make it like a brick and mortar almost, where you don't have to do that in this business, is the alternative option, right?
Yeah. But I think it goes back to exactly what you said. It's like, people have heard what you just said from probably a lot of different, podcasts, entrepreneurs, gurus, but it's the old adage that, I believe you, but I want to find out for myself. Like, you know what I mean? And so it's in our nature to grow and to, increase and expand. And we can thank pop culture for a lot of that, and just movies, and you know what I mean? Like like you said, you want to walk in there, have that. And some people enjoy that. They enjoy that culture. Like you said, it goes back to, what do you want? If you just want to be like a master underwriter and looking at deals that you're going to buy and stuff like that, and the day-to-day is all being ran by you, you're going to make less money. If you want to be involved and maybe work, 30 hours a week and do, 2 deals a month, you might honestly make around the same and have a better life. But
well, I think in real estate, especially, that ego piece is huge. Like when you go around, that's always kind of like the flex that people have, is like how many deals you're doing per month.
Yep.
The revenue on that's typically not necessarily discussed.
Yeah, I think there's something to be said too about, is what is a lot of money to you? Like, is making $300,000 a lot of money? Because you can easily make $300,000 a year in this business 20 hours a week. If you're willing to commit to marketing, and you're willing, those 20 hours a week, you're willing to work and like bust your ass, find deals, sell deals, do all that stuff. You could do that wholesaling, flipping a handful of houses here and there. And that's easy. Then you could go work 40 hours a week. You can make more money, but it's like, there's this like threshold and there's a ceiling that you can hit. And that's, I think, the inflection point where Mike and I have hit that at several different businesses of ours. And you have to truly find out, do you want to take it deeper and further, or are you okay with that being your ceiling? That ceiling where you need to hire staff to get bigger, which means your margins drop. So then basically the take home dips, and to overcome that and get to where your take home's higher, even though you have a smaller net margin. So say instead of 40% margins, you're down to 30%. You just need to make more money, right? And can you break through that little hiccup when you go to scale? And I think the key is in the conversation is, do you actually want to? Because bigger isn't always better. It can be, but you have to want bigger.
Yeah. Well, there are balances for it, though, right? Because I think that if you have a larger business, even though you're making essentially the same amount of money as you could when you were smaller, what it does give you is a little bit more flexibility with your time and opportunity, as well as stability, right?
Yeah.
And so, if you build out a decent little team that's churning off money, it can give you the ability to not have to work in the business quite as much, to spend time with your kids, to do different things. Versus if you're small and you're not working, you're probably not making any money. Right. And also the stability piece is huge. So like a few months ago, we had one of our acquisition managers quit while we were at KeysCon. Right. We were literally at the event and they quit. If he was our only salesperson, that would have been kind of disastrous, because we would have been out for 2 days and we had no backup. But because he was a member of a team of 5, nothing really skipped a beat and it just kind of kept going.
Exactly. Yeah, right? That's a good point. That's the comfortability of being larger, like you said,
Yeah.
I think it's good to talk through it all so people can kind of, identify. Different listeners are going to attach to different things that we've just discussed, like, maybe I would like that actually, or that midway one, maybe that's mine, or the solo operator where you have no employees. Some people enjoy that because they're control freaks and don't trust people.
Well, it seems like there's this, in a lot of times, at least in our generation of real estate investors, like a lot of people got into it because like the idea of passive income, controlling your income, F you to the man. So it's like you go through this cycle of like, okay, you dive into it and you want to control your income. You don't want somebody else telling you how to do your job. You want to be able to produce your own income, because that's actually financial security, being able to produce and generate revenue for yourself. So then you're doing it. Then you find out quickly, if I don't show up to work, I don't make revenue. So you've now created it, but now if something happens, you can't do it. So then the next level is, how do I take vacation from my business? How do I be sick? How do I have a baby and not have to get on the phone the next day? Now that is where you have to build a team or build a business that supports a team.
Yeah, it's the 4 quadrants from the book from Robert Kiyosaki.
From Rich Dad Poor Dad.
From Rich Dad Poor Dad.
Totally. Yeah.
You're trying to move out of those, isn't it, the BNI quadrants?
Whatever.
Seems
it
like
is.
a lot of math for me.
Into the BNI quadrants.
Yeah.
From the solopreneur and the employee quadrants.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
I'm a little bit too young for Rich Dad Poor Dad. By the time I got in the real estate game, that was like old news.
You're not even a dad yet.
Yeah.
I know.
Exactly.
You're a rich man, poor man.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Yeah, rich boy, poor boy.
I've been
Rich
rich
for
and
poor
I've been
boy.
poor. What does that mean?
4 quadrants. What you talking about?
Yeah. I failed math class.
Yeah. But so from your experience as well, Cody, so before we all started working together, I mean, you were one of our competitors here in Spokane. You were a part of a different partnership, and you guys scaled to a much larger size than we did. I mean, I don't know, what were your kind of like biggest ahas that you noticed from going through that? From when we first met years and years ago, it was just, you and Allie, your sister, as small operators.
Yeah.
You scaled up pretty big. We scaled up with a smaller team, less revenue, but I think Dan and I might have made more money than you, even though we were doing half the deals.
Yeah, it's possible. It's possible. We have to compare 1040s.
Yeah, we can break out our rulers. We can measure our dicks after this.
Yeah, let's do it.
No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, no, I mean, like, that's what, speaking to that, because I feel like I can 100% relate. We started a big wholesaling and flipping company with 2 of our biggest buyers in the late 2020. And we scaled up really big, and it was a lot of fun. So, like, to speak to the culture aspect of things, to speak to the, if one person quits, it doesn't sink you, comment that you made, Mike, those things are really true. We had a great culture. We had, I've told you guys about the ping pong table and the bell we've had in the office. And, we see that on Instagram from a lot of different companies that are bigger nationwide. And it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun to have a lot of people in the office and everybody making money together. We also would do, $300,000 months, but our overhead was also insanely high. We were spending, so there's a ton of risk there. You have these people coming in that are depending on the deals coming through and the marketing being on point.
Yeah.
And the wholesale deals closing and the flips not sitting out there getting beat up on, inspection. And just like, it was a lot of different things that, and then we had partners as well. We're all kind of holding each other accountable and making sure that we're all going to make it and all that stuff, so it was tough. It's just like, it's just like anything. There's, with more solutions or with more problems that you take on, you have more solutions that you need to solve. So your world gets a lot bigger, and some people do really well with that. And some people, it stresses them out a lot. I'd say I was kind of in the middle, just because we had good roles set out for everybody in our partnership group, but yeah, it was a challenge.
So when you guys, just for context too, for size, like I think we were talking this week, and you guys had a pipeline. You restricted yourself to 21 flips at a time. So you're doing several flips at any given time. And then you guys were wholesaling, like how many deals a month do you think?
Oh, probably like 8 wholesales every month. Yeah. And
That's
maybe
pretty fair.
like 4 of the deals would be flips. So like 12, so we were clipping our way like 150 or something a year. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's pretty good.
Which a lot of companies are doing. A lot of the bigger companies are doing that,
Mm-hmm. And when it comes to the business, the size and like that, would you go back to doing exactly like that? What part of that business would you not replicate?
Yeah, no, I don't want to do that again. I'm pursuing, with you guys, that the middle of the road option. Right. And so for everybody listening, like, I've learned these hard lessons firsthand. And then I've already been at the bottom. I've already been the solopreneur that made pretty good money my first year with 0 employees. And so now I want to see what it tastes like to be in the middle, and have a small team and have some hires and not have to do everything on our own like we did in the beginning. But at the same time, the pressure with, that amount of overhead and everything, I saw it when the market swung, when the interest rates went up, so many people lost their jobs. You know what I mean? so many things were uncertain. A lot of different companies were taking losses, and I don't want to position myself, and I don't think you guys do either, to put ourselves in that place. If something happens, especially with a big election on the horizon, there's a lot of unknowns, economically.
Yeah. Was you say a lot of that overhead staff was basically committed to running the flipping side of the business as opposed to the wholesale side? I mean, you guys had a couple acquisition managers that worked underneath you and TC and all that stuff. But as far as like the complexity of it, do you think it was more towards flipping, or is it just because you guys were scaling for growth? And so you guys,
the biggest line items on our spreadsheet was hard money payments and insurance, actually. For the flips. And that's if you don't, the salary was number one, obviously, for all the employees. But below that, it was hard money and insurance. So the flipping side of the business ate up a lot of cash. But also back in 2021, our average flip profits on our deals was around 65K was the average,
Wow.
So,
high risk, but high reward kind of thing.
4 million. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. And that's why I bring that up, because I have a strong opinion on like flipping. I think there's a sweet spot in flipping where I don't know too many flippers that are doing 100 plus flips a year, which can be considered small compared to some of these big cities where they got big time flippers. Like, I don't know anybody that consistently does flips like that and does it throughout like a decade. I would say, which was interesting, Mike, was when you were down in Austin talking to Aaron Demetrius about how he does this stuff. He doesn't have, like, his whole thing is about his staff and how that can sink a business when the market turns. 100%. And so he doesn't hire contractors in-house.
Yep. They're all subs. That's like his whole thing. And you'll have like
that's
one or two in-house people that basically manage those. Or if there's like a very recurring sort of thing, or like he'll have like handymen that do like the weird stuff that's hard to find subs for. When it comes to the standard things, flooring, drywall, roofing, whatever, they're all subs, but he just keeps them so busy that they pretty much work just for him. But then if things get weird, he just says bye,
turns it off, right? And he's monitoring that. And the thing I think right now is actually an interesting time to do something like that. I could see you scaling up a flipping operation now because the labor is better than it was, say, 18 months ago, 2 years ago. And if you think about it, like I look at D.R. Horton as a national home builder. And if you talk to all the contractors, that they're all subs that build these houses for them, and they're like, oh, they don't pay shit. But guess what? They still build houses really fast, and they still have a line of contractors willing to work for them because they do pay. And they do have a lot of work. And so a contractor who does foundations is like, okay, I can see the next 24 months of my life right here. It's 20% less than I would make if I was scraping together jobs, but I can see that lot, that lot, that lot, that lot. I'm going to build foundations every week the next 2 years. Same thing goes when you're somebody that's sizable and you're a big pillar. And I remember when we had Aaron on the podcast, is like, he was kind of like, you either work for me or you don't. This is our standard. This is how we paint. This is what we pay you. And guess what? He didn't have any problems getting people. I think that's the fear, is you won't have people if you're having to dictate terms. Instead, a lot of times what we do is we allow those subs dictate the terms of how we work with them.
Yeah.
Instead and so then we think naturally, let's bring those in house and we dictate to them. Well, Aaron proved that you can do that outside of your company with subs.
Yeah. And we're doing that now. I mean, I know we've only done a couple of flips together, but that's also what I'm doing. And I've learned that from my old partner who was very good at flipping. They did have it in-house, but I just sort of took those lessons, exactly what you just said, Dan. And I've implemented those with subs as well, so that it can be turned on and off at any time, and it's an example is we have a couple projects going on right now, and we only have a couple of crews that we trust. And so I needed to go to my Facebook group here locally to find someone to turn a duplex unit. Right. And I had some interviews out at the property last Friday, and they went great. These guys were really great. Probably got lucky, but I had 3 really solid dudes to choose from. And every single guy, I said exactly the same thing. I said, this is how much I'm paying for labor. This is the scope of work. This is what I want done. And that's that. So if they weren't able to do my job for $3,000 is what I was offering for this one whole week of work, it's a bigger job, but in a whole week it'll be knocked out, then they weren't going to work with me. And all of them agreed that would be fine. I'd be okay with that. They know it's a lot lower than their normal handyman hourly rate that they're putting out to the owner occupied general population. But that's what it's like, you just dropped a great tip for people that are wanting to flip and do lipsticks is the money is usually okay. If you buy a fantastic deal, sure, go overpay a contractor to flip it, but you can make even more money by getting your rehab costs way down. And any big flipper that I know, that's the art that they focus on, is their rehab budget and how to get that thing down.
Yep. That's so true. And spending time, because the labor is the biggest component of that. Vanity is a vanity. Like, you're not going to save a ton of material costs. You can go and buy quantity and scale and all that stuff, and that'll save you like 10%. But the biggest part of your budget is going to be the labor costs. Yeah. And we've seen it go through the roof recently.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's all Lowe's or Home Depot in stock stuff on the flips we're doing, because we're doing that first home buyer product that's around the 300 grand range, which I think a lot of people have that product nationwide. And so, that needs to be the standard. So if you're not doing that, then you're already doing it wrong. If you're on Wayfair buying a $1,300 vanity, and you're listening to this, you need to stop doing that.
It's super cute though.
Sure. And that's we can thank HGTV for that. And that's the sexy part of flipping,
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, I think a big takeaway from all that too, right, is the key to scaling any sort of real estate business is learning to kind of like manage those, I'd say, operational expenses that tend to creep up and make so they aren't fixed costs, but they're kind of variable cost dependent on need, right? And that ultimately you're going to do so in a way that limits your downside risk. So if the market does turn over like it did in 2022, you're not losing your ass all of a sudden and throwing away years worth of success that you've had.
Yeah.
That can be done by having subcontractors. One of the benefits that we have now is that Dan and I did make a decent amount of money over the past couple of years. So we've also raised a little bit of money. So for us to be able to do some of these flips like Cody's talking about, we're able to do it at a much cheaper rate than going and getting a hard money loan, where they're going to have doc fees, they're going to have points, they're going to have all these sort of things. We basically just pay a straight interest rate, which is very simple, which, goes into our fund. So, here's the thing is, if we were going to lose on a deal, right, we're partners on it, we can have more flexibility. We're not going to foreclose because we missed a payment on it, right? Because it's our money technically, and you're not carrying that overhead cost, which I think is what tends to really cost a lot of people over the like middle term as they're growing. But
the only way you got there was through taking those high interest hard money loans.
Exactly.
Learning those lessons, hiring the wrong contractor. Like it was the price of your education. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, 100%. Totally. And also, to be completely honest, we did that when the market was freaking red hot, where you couldn't lose. Right. And so we were able to really capitalize on the situation that arose, that sort of came around at that time. Like, and I guess for a comparison for Dan and I, that period of time, that like was our like Bitcoin boom, right? We were buying all these properties, making money hand over fist. We owned a bunch of properties that we like bought that doubled in value in 3 years. We have since been able to recapitalize and use that.
But we didn't know that. So just so we don't discourage people listening, because it's like, I feel like I remember that, and you guys probably do too, in 2020, of like these older guys that are like, oh, we bought properties for 20 grand and I would never pay 100 grand for that piece of crap. Like, and so there's always that new challenge, like in the current market. And I know people are looking at this market, sitting on the sidelines, and they're making up all these excuses for this current market, which are that inflation that you just talked about, Mike, and how the prices have doubled in the last 4 years. And like, they're using all these excuses, when I look at it as there's so many properties on the MLS sitting there not selling. These rates are keeping a lot of buyers on the sidelines. You know what I mean? The glass is totally half full, and you can make money in any market, especially in wholesaling.
Totally.
Well, the funny thing is, I would even say this is still an easier market than it was in 2018 in terms of, actually making money on deals, because the properties are more expensive. So you legitimately just have more margin, because a house that's $400,000, you can make more money on a house than on a house that's $200,000, because there's more money. There's more margin to be able to work into the deal. But I remember when I started flipping houses back in 2018, and so many of the old guys, like you're talking about, Cody, were like, oh, this market's so inflated. The thing's going to turn over any second now. And, you would go in and you would list a flip. Like the first flip that I listed, the realtor that we worked with, she was like, so a typical expectation right now is stuff sitting on the market for 3 to 5 months. And that was what you started with, was you were expecting that, and now people get discouraged if things sit for 30 days.
2 weeks, a week without an offer. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. But like, but stuff was tight. Like the first deal that I ever flipped, I bought it for like 140. I put 50 into it. I ended it for like 190. I sold it for 267. And so after costs and everything else,
maybe netted 30 grand or something.
Now that for that first one, I think the very first one I netted $4,000. That one I netted $30,000 across all that. But like, it was still, I didn't know how long it was going to take. I remember I was so stoked when I sold it in like 6 weeks. That was like crazy because the expectation was 3 months.
It's crazy.
But stuff changes. And like the whole thing is you guys got to be taking action and making your decisions off of data and what the market's actually doing. And honestly, like find people that are doing the business. Like this is one of the values of things like our scale community, right? Or like other communities or listening to podcasts. Find people that are actually operating currently and just do what they're doing. And surprise, because there's 140 million houses in the US. You only need like a couple dozen to make a very good living.
You don't need a lot, dude. Yeah, you don't need a lot. One a month, you can make a really good living.
Easily. Like honestly, totally. As a one-man
12
operator.
deals a year.
Absolutely. Yeah, but you gotta.
People would die to do that.
Exactly. Totally. You gotta play the game to win, though. You can't, like you said earlier, Cody. There's a lot of times people are sitting on the sidelines making excuses, and you could see it. As we went in, as 2023 started, going into 2024, there's so many people. I still talk to people. I'm waiting for interest rates to come down. It's going to be a yard sale, man. I'm going to go out there, and it's like, no, you're not. That's not how it happens. That's not how it works. People that are playing right now are the ones that are going to win.
Mm-hmm. Totally. Because everyone wants to be prepared to capitalize when it actually happens. When you're trying to start the war, during the bloodbath, you don't want to be doing that. Right?
Well, and if you have the crystal ball to what's going to happen, if whatever your metric is, interest rates go down, a president gets elected, whatever those metrics are, like if you have a crystal ball, like you should go gamble because you know the laws of physics and everything really well and how things work. You're super smart, right? Like, you know what I mean? I don't know anybody that can do that.
Call now at 509-993.
Mail that shit to me, dude.
Please tell us.
It.
Yeah. No, you're right, Dan. 100%.
Yeah. So as we start to really scale our Spokane stuff here, Cody, what do you think for people that I would say have been around for a little bit, they probably made a little bit of success, they're trying to figure out this current phase of their business. What do you think is the most important thing for people to keep in mind to be successful in this current market from your experience having operated through all like the same phases?
I would take it back to the wholesaling, to be honest. I mean, the wholesaling is the best way to get your capital raised. It's the best way to get a lot of experience with messy deals. It's the best way to put yourself at the center of your market between buyers and title companies and sellers and all these different people, like you talk to wholesalers, they know everybody, and a lot of times flippers and buy and hold people that are higher net worth individuals, they never start there. And they are always sort of on the outside trying to get the attention of the wholesalers. And, the wholesalers are like the cute girl at the bar, so to speak. You know what I mean? And so I think a lot of, I watch a lot of realtors and a lot of investors too in Spokane that are like, I want to kind of get into wholesaling. Like, how much is marketing? How do I do this? How do I, because they see that. They see how attractive it is to be at the center of your own deal and have all of that control. You know what I mean? And then after that, that's when you can start to buy some of your lipsticks. You can start to spend your profits on rental properties. You can take the risk and do an Airbnb because you have a couple of deals in escrow and you have that security and also that fast money. Because we've talked about before, like wholesale or flips are, 5 to 7 months. That was about around our average was like 5.5 months. That's pretty quick, to be honest. For a newbie, I'd say it's like at least 9, till you're going to see that cash off that flip.
At least.
So
totally.
I don't know. I think that's probably one of the main things I would highlight.
Yeah.
For anybody in this current market with all the uncertainty.
Yeah. What are your thoughts, Dan? What do you think?
Okay. So the most important thing for somebody to scale from where they're at right now, I think is, I'll go back to the beginning of the conversation, but I think it's really truly focusing on what you want out of your business. I'll just simply put it, because if you don't have a roadmap for where you're going, you're just going to do shit. and you're going to keep adding shit on to do, and it's not actually going to be helpful to you at all. And so really necking down everything of like, what do you want the business to look like in the next 12 months? You don't have to have a 30-year vision where you want to be, but what do you actually want your business to feel like? And then what does it need to look like? And execute from there. I think you need to focus on getting really good at wholesaling. I think you got to keep doing that. Because I think as we know this, that's a good way to make really good income and really good cash without taking undue risk and stretching your cash and your money too quickly. And then I say, if you want to pick up a flip here and there, don't pick up a flip because you think you need it to make the extra income. Pick it up as an opportunity and saying, I have excess capital in my bank account. So now I can, instead of taking a $15,000 wholesale fee, I can make $40,000 on this flip. It's like an opportunistic play, not an essential part of your business. That's my opinion for scaling, being consistent as well on your marketing to feed that machine so that you can seriously keep going and keep winning.
You think that's the same advice as you were giving somebody years ago versus now? Or do you think anything's changed with that sort of philosophy now? Like in 2024, since the market's kind of changed a little bit.
That's the advice I give now. Has that changed from the beginning when I didn't know shit? Probably.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like literally from you, but like in hindsight, do you think that same principle applies though?
Yeah, no, I think that applies 100%. That advice of how to operate your business, going backwards, how we operated, how I would have operated, how I would change my mind. I think the problem people get caught up with, and this is just from firsthand experience, is they think that they need to do everything, or they think that they need to be real estate owners to be in real estate. And so you get caught up in this very slow game while you're trying to build a business that converts cash quickly. And the slow game is buying rental properties and buying flips.
Sure. Cool. Yeah, I think on my end, like the big thing that I would say is definitely different that I would really emphasize for people is the market now and the industry has become so much more sophisticated than it was 3 or 4 years ago. And anybody that's going to try and get into this and think that they can spend, I literally talked to a guy on Instagram the other day that told me he has $100 a month to spend. Just save your $100, dude. I was like, just do anything else. My advice to him, I was like, bro, he was like, I have 4 hours a day and only have $100 a month to spend on my business. What should I do? I said, go drive for Uber for 4 hours and save up like as much money as you can. Then once you have like $5,000 or $6,000, then invest in like getting some data and a dialer, and then just like start grinding, because that's what you're going to need to do. And so I think one of the big things right now is like, the industry has become so much more sophisticated. There's a ton of people like us that, like, you know, were born when the market was really strong and then survived when the market sucked ass for 18 months. And those of us that are still here, we've built a lot of resilience. We've built a lot of systems. We know how to operate. And, you know, and we're honestly kind of ragtag compared to some of the other people that are out there, right? And to think that you can come in and do like the old bigger pockets, sort of like just drive for dollars and with like a notepad and like write down shitty addresses and like, you know, call those people, you're leaving your success up to luck, right? Mm-hmm. Which is not realistic. And so I think it's so important that if you're going to pursue this, you need to pursue it from a position of like, you're willing to invest money, you're willing to kind of take a quote unquote risk. You're going to have to really work a lot harder than you feel like you probably have to. And if you're not willing to do that, then you should probably go and do something different at this point.
And I want to add one thing. If you're taking advice from somebody about driving for dollars that hasn't driven for dollars in a decade, it's probably not good. If you're taking advice from a dude who dyes his hair pink on novations, I mean, we're past the novation season. Like that got hot for like 6 months. We're past that. From a guy that's never done a novation, you probably should just turn them off on your Instagram profile. Don't get advice from people that don't actually do what the hell they're talking about, because that's probably outdated information.
Yeah, totally.
The business is sophisticated and it moves quickly. That shouldn't discourage you though, because for every city where there's a big operator that's doing a really kick-ass job, there's still a shit ton of low-hanging fruit that you can go and grab and nibble on.
Totally. Yeah, and that's a big reason that we moved our Monday shows over to being the scale show. We're interviewing operating members of our community, is because we were in such this pattern where every guest that would try to come on the show, they haven't done a deal since 2019. right? And I'm like, I don't care about what this person has to say because it's not relevant.
That's
5 years later.
We did
So
a deal
stupid.
yesterday.
Yeah,
Right.
I know,
Seriously,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, we're not that big. We've done 4 deals this month. We're halfway through. You know?
Yeah,
Exactly.
right. So,
Yeah.
cool.
No, that's good. That's good. I like that, Mike. I think the market is or the environment is way more sophisticated than it was in 2018, and that's really good wisdom for anybody listening. And you know, that kind of back into the, I know you weren't trying to do a plug there, but that highlights the value of like your guys' scale group or anybody else that you trust and is offering quality education. I know that you guys did a lot of education in the beginning, and that's why you were able to move so quickly. That's exactly why Allie and I were able to move so quickly, is because we joined programs and paid for coaching and paid for mentoring, and it quickly got us in the game. You know what I mean? It also gives you that accountability, whether it's good or not. When you spend like $5,000 and you've done like 2 deals, that's massive for your soul. Like you're like, all right, whatever I just bought, I'm doing everything.
Right.
So it could be crap, but at least you're like doing so much stuff and you're so desperate to like, you know, get an ROI on that education spend.
Totally.
And so I don't know. I mean, people have said that for years, but it's like, it's because it's true. You are you're paying for the shortcut. You know, like I played in a bunch of golf scrambles this summer, and they'll give you like string and stuff that you can buy for like $5 so you can lay out the string on your putt and cut it so you don't have to take the putt. It's like that. You're buying shortcuts, you're buying a quicker path. You know, you're also buying great friends and a great network that you can do deals with. So I'm a big believer in doing that, or just getting involved locally, you know, taking people out to coffee, getting, you know, that's the way that you can sort of shortcut what Mike talked about and understand what these sophisticated tactics are. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
compile your own list that way.
Yeah. And you can learn anything on the internet right now from watching YouTube, listening to podcasts, you know, reading blogs, reading books, whatever. But when you join things like that and you get around people that are actually doing what you're trying to do, you're paying for speed, you know, and it comes down to, do you want to spend years learning or like trying to piece together what actually is relevant for you, especially because the things that get promoted on the internet aren't always the best content. They're the ones that are produced by the highest performing content creators that are willing to pay to play. And that's why you see a lot of people that are spewing bullshit with pink hair that are, you know, selling things that aren't fully relevant. Right. But you can actually pay for speed with that and get a package of exactly what you're supposed to do. That's why guys like Alex Hormozi have blown up, because he gives you things that are super actionable, that are like, this is exactly what you should do. Here's why you should do it. Here is my exact, you know, case study about why it makes sense. And, you know, you can pay to get that knowledge a little bit quicker.
Exactly.
So cool. Right on, guys. Anything else to wrap up before we go?
No, I'm good.
I'm good.
All right, cool. Well, thanks, Cody, for joining us today.
Yeah. Thanks, guys.
Yeah. Hopefully you guys got some good insights there on, you know, how you should be viewing the growth of your business and scale and sort of where the market's headed and everything else. So go ahead and share this with anybody else that you know in the real estate space. It really helps to continue to grow the show. We appreciate it and appreciate you guys listening. We'll talk to you guys next week. See ya.